so we're back again. And as you guys know, we're always talking about coaching. We're always talking about mentorship. And just in the spirit of that, if you're looking to hire a coach or a mentor, chances are it means that you're looking to bring something into your life. There's something going on, something that you may be stuck in. But the thing about it is every coach, every mentor, every person that will help you, they got a different method, right? So today we're going to be talking about believing versus doing, because you'll see some coaches where it's all about action, action, action. Sleep when you're dead, die on the battlefield, go away for 8 months, don't talk to nobody. If you sleep, you're lazy, they yelling, they screaming, they sweating. And for some people that works. And then on the other side of that coin, to the other extreme, you have some coaches and mentors that are more so, just believe, you'll manifest it, speak it into existence, vibrate higher, all of those great things that I say a lot. So, you have these two extremes. So what we're going to talk about today is why those two extremes, what we personally believe works best and what we've seen work best, and just kind of, look at those extremes and why we have that in this industry. So again, I'll start with this, question to you, Demetra. As far as coaching and you working with clients, what do you feel or what have you seen works best when helping somebody bring something new or create something new into their life?
It's so interesting that we're talking about this, because what I've learned is to customize it based on the client, right? I do have the client that wants people to push them and yell at them. That is not who I am. That is not method of coaching that I use. Now, I am the that believes in, of course, manifestation, the positive self-talk. That, of course, is the foundation of everything that I use, tools, whatnot, when I'm coaching someone. And now, will I challenge you and push you? Absolutely. But there's no yelling and telling you to die on the battlefield. And there's none of that. But to your point, RJ, that does work for some people. And I mean, I've challenged and pushed people, some more than the others, but I am not either. I'm not all or nothing. I find that happy medium with the client, but at the base of everything that we do is always believing in yourself, because I think that is what will be your motivation as you move through the process.
I kind of grew up in business being mentored from that philosophy of, sleep when you're dead, don't be lazy, just you don't have time for anything else. You ain't got time for no relationship. You don't have time for, socializing with your friends. You got these goals to make. What do you mean you went out and hung out? You ain't got time to hang out. You got goals to meet. And I believed that wholeheartedly at one point. And I lived that life of cutting people off and cutting out social events and cocooning myself and, locking myself in a room for a week and, all of those type of things. And I know there's people that truly heart and soul believe in that. But after a while, I noticed that it wasn't working for me, and I've met other people over time that it wasn't working for, because I understood that life was bigger than just that one goal. And at the end of the day, what I started to realize is that the reason we're seeking a goal is because we're always seeking a new level of happiness, and a lot of times we believe that that particular goal, which is usually some type of success goal, some type of business goal, some type of financial goal, we somehow believe that if we get that, all of those other things that we've been neglecting are just going to work themselves out. And what I learned was that that wasn't true. You can lock yourself away and cocoon yourself and cut everybody off and come back in 8 months. And you may have reached that financial goal, but now you're lonely because you don't have any friends, right? Your health may be failing because you didn't take care of your health or you neglected all of these other areas. So for me, it wasn't about telling people not to take action or telling people not to be focused. It was about, how do I help individuals, as well as myself at the time, how do I help them reach their goals, bring that thing into their life that they feel like is missing or that they feel like they want to attract? How do I do that, but still bring a level of balance, So for me today, like you said, it's about customizing, but it's more so about when I'm working with somebody, how do I not just elevate you to your goal, but how do I elevate you as a person?
No, I totally agree with you. And one thing I have noticed about people who have the mindset of dying on the battlefield, so to speak, right?
Hmm.
And again, I don't want anybody to think that we're bashing that type
Hmm.
of, by no means. You do have to find what works for you. But I do believe that if you're looking at it either I'm this extreme or I'm that extreme, then that comes with black or white thinking.
Hmm.
And that is something challenge everyone that I work with is why does it have to be this or that? If we're creating and manifesting what we want in our lives, then why not create what we want? And if I don't want these two options, then create something new. And I think that comes with, of course, people even believing the fact that it can be something new, right? It doesn't have to be these two options. So I think, again, transforming what people think, RJ, is one of the greatest keys for people to experience a different life.
True. The other thing that I would say is when I was in that way of thinking to the extreme, what I really learned was that that way of thinking for me, and this may not be for everybody, but for me, that way of thinking of being extreme and I can't talk to nobody because it was really rooted in fear, right? There was no belief going on. I was rooted in fear. I can't hang out because if if I don't work 24 hours a day, then somehow this fear is telling me this goal is not going to happen. And
Right.
in a sense, I became in bondage or enslaved to the mentality of I can't stop. If I stop, it's not gonna work. And what I started to notice is that it wasn't working, not because I wasn't working hard enough. It wasn't working because the fear of it was keeping me further away from it. So I always talk when I talk to clients or even other coaches or people that I know, and they're in that mentality. That's the one thing I always say: hey, examine and make sure that you're not cutting everybody off because you're so fearful that if you don't, this goal is not going to happen. Because as I was always taught, we know faith without works is dead, right? So
Absolutely.
you can work all day long, work, and toil all day long, but be doubtful and fearful, and you still won't manifest to the fullest the thing that you want.
RJ, this is one of my favorite analogies that I use with clients. And typically, at the beginning of the year, everybody gonna lose 50 pounds in 3 weeks, right? They're gonna be skinny, they're not gonna drink soda, you're not gonna eat carbs, fried foods, all of this. People put these things in the atmosphere. And there's nothing wrong with them, except for most people are so busy doing, they're not changing the foundation of what's driving them to the behavior, right? And typically, the belief, the thoughts you have about yourself have not changed, but you're expecting your actions to change.
Mhm.
They will change for the short, but your beliefs and your thoughts are your driving force. And if you don't change those, you can only be that person for so long, because who
Absolutely.
you really are based on your beliefs is going to shine through. That's why people quit diets. That's why people quit budgeting. All of those things they put at the beginning of the year. I'm gonna say $50 a week, $200 a week. It might last a month, and they go right back to their daily routines. And it's because you didn't get to the root cause, which is what you believe and how you think. And if you don't change those, RJ, think about the actions, like you said, when you were working with your mentor, you did those things for a little while and then you went back to what RJ was accustomed to doing, because ultimately you knew that this, whatever the belief was or actions were they were trying to get you to do, they didn't work for you.
Because most of the time, real results come from a level of consistency. And for
Mm-hmm.
most human beings, extreme measures aren't carried out on a consistent basis. Extreme measures
Right.
are very short term because they're such a shock to your system. That's why, when people used to come at me with that, let's do the 40 days of no carbs. And I'm like, for what? Nah, because you need to shock your system. That only is going to be good if on day 41 you don't start back eating all the carbs you was eating before the 40 days, because that's what usually happens. People suffer and fight through those 40 days, and if they make it through the 40 days of no carbs, day 41 they in the Krispy Kreme line, they at Chick-fil-A, they loading up on all the carbs that they missed for those 40 days, and it's kind of like, well, what was the point in this? Versus,
Right.
we have to start to slowly build our way up instead of starting so extreme. I hear coaches and people say, especially on social media all the time, in order to focus, I heard somebody say, I dare you to go away for 6 months. Don't talk to nobody. Don't go nowhere. That's really extreme. Because what's probably going to happen if you're not that person that can handle extremes, by the time that 6 months is over, if you make it, you're going to be out talking to everybody, non-focused. Why? Because you've created such a painful experience within your mind. And a lot of times we don't understand how extremes affect us psychologically. People will always ask me, RJ, why can't I be consistent? And I'll say, well, what is it that you're trying to be consistent on? Let's take dieting, for instance. Well, I want to stop eating meat, so I want to be vegan. Okay, great. So how are you going about that? Well, I'm vegan now. Okay, so you telling me you're vegan on Wednesday, but on Monday you was eating fried chicken and fried pork chops. That's slightly unrealistic that you're going to go from that to eating all the meat possible to being vegan on Wednesday and maintain that for the rest of your life. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. Some people could do it, but most people aren't going to be able to do it. Versus, how
Right.
about maybe you don't eat meat 1 day a week for the next month? Get good at that. And then maybe add a second day, maybe 2 days a week. Now, you the second month, 2 days a week, you don't eat meat. Build your way up so that now you've created a lifestyle change. But when it's extreme, it's for a burst, it's a sprint, it's a short period of time. It's usually you slide lower in the ditch than where you were before you started, if that makes sense.
Because again, nothing has changed except for the action you're attempting to take. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't change the core, what's driving you, you can't be consistent that long. So it's not going to
True.
work. And I've been around coaches and mentors who have that mentality of die on the like you said, die on the battlefield. That just never worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, the times when I have done taken extreme measures, I did get results. But to your point, RJ, they weren't long term.
Mm-hmm.
And now what I will say is, the example that you used about being vegan and whatnot. I remember this was some years ago, but I had a significant birthday. I won't say what it is because I'm not dating somebody, but I had a significant
32,
birthday.
32,
And
31.
yeah, yeah. I think I'm 30, 31.
We go with that. We go with
so,
that.
so for my 30th birthday, I went on this diet. I hired a trainer. My
Mm-hmm.
trainer at the time was, and he was like, Demetra, everybody I work with goes vegan. And I'm like, goes vegan? Like, is this a trip I'm going on? Because
All
I
right.
mean, right, I don't know how this works. Nevertheless, I worked with this guy, I want to say about 4 months. I can't even remember, but it was a while. And the just the initial week of going into not having eggs, not having butter, not
Mm-hmm.
anything that came from animal. Oh my gosh, I felt weak, right? And then once we got into the routine of it, I was fine. But
Mm-hmm.
it took everything not to quit within the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I stuck it out. I stayed for whatever the duration was. And then afterwards, to your point, I was like, I'm gonna eat some pot roast. It was Mother's Day. I was taking my mom out to eat pot roast. Oh my God, it made me so sick. But
Mm-hmm.
nevertheless, I share that with you because granted, I'm not vegan anymore.
Mm-hmm.
My lifestyle, and it was because I took those extreme measures. I was like, yeah, I don't know if my life is set up for this. So there are certain things to this day that I still don't eat. I still don't eat. I don't eat beef. I don't eat pork. I don't eat butter. I don't like all that. I like a lot of that stuff, RJ. I never picked up. But what I did was I made the modifications that worked for my life. And a lot of those people gained the weight back. Now I can definitely say I dropped like 20 pounds, never gained it back.
Hmm.
But it wasn't because I kept up the extreme measures of being vegan and eating popcorn because you can't have it. I mean, it was like way out there. You couldn't have juice, you couldn't have anything but water. And once I made the adjustments to what worked for me and my life, I kept the weight off and I just changed my lifestyle. And I
Hmm.
think that's where people sometimes fall short. If you're going to do the extreme measures, to your point, if you want to try it out, try it out. But on day 41, you can't go eat all the, the croissants out of the restaurant. You can't do that. So you have to find a happy medium that works for you. And that goes for your business, the coach you choose, the mentor you choose, the career you choose, everything in your life. It does cost for you to change, but it has to be something that you can be consistent doing.
Very true, because the battle of whatever it is that you're working to produce in your life, it's either won or lost in your mind. And like I said before, if you do something that's so extreme that now you associate whatever that is with pain, it's
Right.
difficult for us to go back to something painful, right?
Right.
So
Right.
when you got over those 4 months with that trainer, had he said, "I'm gonna give you another 4 months free on this same level of extreme," you probably would have been like, I don't know if I'm gonna do the another four. Why? Because that 4 months represents a level of pain in your mind, and a lot of times we do
Right.
these extreme things, and even if we make it through it, that 40 days of no carbs, that was painful. Something most people have
Right.
never done before, and that's just an example, but it was painful. So now when you get to day 41, you feel so free and you're out of that mental pain that you go right back to where you were. Versus if you had
Right.
taken gradual steps, psychologically you could have adjusted to it and it wouldn't have been as
Right.
painful. Um,
Right.
but then we have the other side of that coin though, because you have the extreme, do and work and kill yourself. But then now you have this other group, and I may belong to this group a little bit more today. You have this group of manifestation. You know,
Right.
all you have to do is speak it into existence. All you got to do is believe and align yourself with what you want, and it's going to flow into your life. And
Right.
as much as I believe that, I do understand today that you must couple that with some type of action, because a lot of people get stuck on that with not doing anything, and all they're doing is speaking something quote unquote into existence that they've been speaking for 15 years and it ain't come nowhere close to existence, and they're wondering, well, what's going on? Well, I guess I got to keep speaking. Or we start making up stuff like, well, maybe it ain't my time. All of those things to help us
Right.
justify why it's not working. So what's your take on this other realm of, I just speak it, just believe it, and it's gonna show up?
I think it takes some action. I mean, common sense. We could sit here on the like we're doing right now and say, "Man, I wish I had some food. Man, I believe the food gonna come. Somebody gonna bring us some food." And we never call anybody. Nothing's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
We have to take action in order to create some change in our lives. And granted, again, it's not black or white thinking. It's not this
Mm-hmm.
or that. It's a combination of both. And I think if people understood that, people would take more action. And for some, RJ, I think speaking and believing it is easier than moving forward, right? Because it's the fear kicks
Mm.
in. What if I do this and it doesn't turn out the way that
Right.
I thought? It's easier to say maybe it's not my time than to take a risk. or experience what people believe is quote unquote failure.
Mm-hmm.
So for some it's easier, but for me, I need to do, and this is my own personal way. I, of course, align myself with, positive things. I speak positive mantras over my life, but I'm out here every day putting myself in a position to meet people so I can receive that blessing when it comes into my life.
I agree 100%. And that's something that I had to learn because I went from that extreme to this other extreme. And I love the manifestation side. I love the believing and learning how to align myself and learning how to not be worried and, control this voice within. I love all of that. But what I understand today is that the principle is twofold. Faith without works is dead. Works without faith is dead, right? They're both dead. So if you're extreme working, no faith behind it, not many results. If you're all faith and no work behind it, not many results. And I believe that a lot of times this side of the coin, it doesn't hold many of us that venture over here fully. If you're not careful,
Right.
this side of the coin doesn't hold you accountable for anything because
Absolutely.
it's so much easier to just say I prayed about it or I'm believing for it or I spoke something and now I can go on with my business doing what I've been doing, contradicting what it is that I might have prayed for, doing something that's the opposite of what it is that I say that I want. And I don't have to be held accountable because I'm putting this off on God, source, creator, universe, or whatever it is that you believe in to bring this thing without me having to get involved from an action
Right.
type standpoint. And I think that's where we lose this battle at because to me, if you're really believing for something to the point to where you're eliminating fear, you're not taking in information that's contradictory to it, and your focus is that thing is happening for me, at some point, something in your spirit is going to give you an action step of something you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be something you need to do. It might not be a big something, but it's going to be something you need to do. You're believing that, I'm going to have this business or whatever the case may be. At some point, something in your spirit is going to say, go on LegalZoom and get your incorporation. But now
Mm-hmm.
that's an action that ain't going to just manifest without you going to LegalZoom.com. They don't pay me for that. So, I'm not promoting them. But that's something that you actually going to have to get on your computer or get on your phone and go to that site, hit enter, type in the information, put your card in,
Right.
pay for it, and then call the IRS, get your EIN. Those are action things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to purchase somebody's course or hire a mentor or a coach to show you how do I market this or how do I brand it. Those aren't things that just go, that knowledge is not just going to manifest and your thing is going to be branded perfectly on its own. No, those are things that you're going to have to physically take a step. But I think when we're all in the believing phase, you get away with not taking the step because so much weight is held on this super thing is going to happen for me, whether I ever do anything or not. And that's not true, in my opinion.
Oh no, I totally agree. Everyone has to be willing to take some sort of action.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the world wouldn't go around if we didn't, right? I
True.
mean, we wouldn't have anything if no one took action. If we all sat down and said, I've been praying for it, nothing would happen. And I just believe that you must be willing to hold yourself accountable. And I say that because, RJ, if we went to the mall or car dealership or whatnot and we bought something and it didn't work, we wouldn't get home and say, man, I'ma pray and it's gonna work. You going right back and you're gonna be livid and you're gonna say, fix this, whatever this is.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to hold the seller accountable, right?
Yeah,
Because they sold you a product, but we don't hold ourselves accountable,
true.
right?
Yeah.
We don't. We're like, oh, I'll get to it, or it just wasn't my time. I prayed about it, and the Lord or the universe or whomever didn't want me to have it. Okay, well, what did you do though?
Right.
Did you put some sweat equity? No. And the moment you acknowledge the fact that you really didn't, then you have to face up to the reason why this didn't turn out the way that I thought it was. It's on me.
True. And to your point, talking about health, it's the same thing. I've been around a lot of people that were praying for better health and believing for better health. And I'm all for that. Pray for it, believe for it. Make sure you're taking in information about your health. Stop Googling symptoms and driving yourself crazy with fear. I agree with that. But if you walk away from that belief or walk away from that prayer and then contradict it by still eating the same, still drinking the
Mm-hmm.
same things, still taking in the same amount of sugar and salt intake, then think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't coincide. The best way I ever heard it put was there's super, there's natural. The super is the spirit and God and the creator and all of those things that we're believing. But the natural is
Mm-hmm.
you. I'm
Right.
never gonna get a six pack just praying for it. At some point.
Ooh, let me know what the prayer was.
Now, yeah, side note, if anybody watched this and you have prayed for a six pack and you did not touch the gym not one day and somehow you woke up with one, please inbox us because we want the specific words you used to get there. I don't need though. I said it kind of like this. I need exactly how you said it, who you said it to, and what time you said it, because I'm gonna be praying that immediately. But we know that's not true. We know that in order to get that, at some point you got to touch a gym. At some point,
Right.
you're gonna have to look at the stuff that you buy when you go grocery shopping. At some point, you have to look at the stuff that you eating every single day, because that's gonna be the thing. And I believe if you're really believing, at some point you're gonna start feeling the contradiction. At least that's how it
Mm-hmm.
happened for me. When I started really believing and I started eliminating anything belief wise and information wise that was contradictory to what I believed, when I started
Right.
moving outside of that, it didn't feel right anymore. If
Right.
if I was believing for my business to do this, but then I wasn't responding and doing the type things that I needed to do, or I kept going on social media and that same course kept popping up with somebody saying exactly what I need, and I wouldn't even click on it to investigate if it was real or not. I started to feel like, okay, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta move. And the reason I talk about this is because I've had clients like that. I've talked to people. I can't tell you if I had $1 for everybody that I've done a consult with, not necessarily that became clients, but I had a
Right.
consult with over the years that were literally on the phone almost in tears. I gotta be better. I'm believing God for this. A lot of those people, and I said, well, okay, great. Well, what strategies are you using? Well, I'm just praying about it and I'm believing for it. Okay, but outside of that, what strategies are you using? A lot of those people today still follow me on social media. They still amen in posts. They still click like and put thumbs up in posts, and I appreciate it, but they're going through the exact same thing. Nothing has changed. And for some, it's been years because they have yet
Right.
to take action. They have yet to buy a book or buy a course or hire a coach or go somewhere where somebody can say, okay, you need to do this like this in line with what you're believing. And it's the same.
People have that issue with making the investment because I've been praying about it. I've been praying about it, or whatever it is. I've been believing. I've been fasting, or whatever. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It comes to investing some financial resources. And that's typically where people are like, well, if I do this, then maybe that means that I don't expect it to work out. No, that just means that you're taking some human action so you can move forward with your goal. But that
Mm-hmm.
investment sometimes scares people because it is an actionable step. I think it terrifies people to commit. at that level, because like you said, it's not a lot of accountability as long as I'm waiting for it and fasting for it and journaling about it and all those things. There's no accountability.
I remember being in meditation, and meditation, you can say prayer, meditation, whatever. And I remember asking, how are prayers answered? Right? And I don't know if anybody's ever asked that question. I'm not your pastor, your leader, your religious, none of that. But just hear me, and this helped me. And I wanted to know, how are prayers answered? Because I knew I was praying for stuff and I wasn't seeing it. So I was like, how are prayers answered? And I had to look at it from more of a realistic, logical, tangible standpoint. Because I think sometimes for me, unconsciously, I looked at it from like a fantasy standpoint. Like I pray for money and then money just show up in my mailbox. And don't get me wrong, that has happened. I have checked my mailbox and it was an unexpected check there. Thank God. But that's not all the time. More than likely,
Right.
when I prayed, I've been led to something that I've been inspired to do. I've been led to
Mhm.
somebody that I've been inspired to have a conversation with. I've been led to post something that through that post, I've gotten a connection that led to an opportunity that led to some money. You know, for the most part, I'm led to do from the prayer. You know what I mean? Versus I pray and it just run me over and knock me in the head and I don't do nothing different. That has rarely happened. And I'm not saying
Right.
those wonderful miracle things don't happen, but you don't want to wait on a miracle every single day of your life just to survive. You want to be able to believe, get instructions from spirit, implement those instructions, get results.
I just think whatever works for the people who are listening. So we're not telling you to go this way or that way. We're telling
Mhm.
you that in order to make some changes in your life, it takes some action. Even if you want to go extreme, it still takes action and belief. If you want to just do belief, you still got to take some action in some capacity. So figure out how much or how little works for you and create your own recipe for success.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, and I don't really have much else on this topic because it's kind of cut and dry. But at the end of the day, like you said, we're not trying to persuade you either way. But the question that you can always ask yourself, no matter which end of the spectrum that you're on, how is it working out for you? Is
Right.
it serving you well? If it's all action, is it serving you well? Maybe you are taking all action and you're reaching the business goals. But what about these other areas in your life? I had a client
Right.
once, she was in her 40s and she was, business client, totally driven on building her business. She was already successful, but sometimes it can become insatiable to where you can never get enough. And she was already in her 40s, getting close to like, early to mid, and she was like, I still want to get married one day and have a family. And I'm thinking like, what you mean one day? Because that window is slowly closing. And I wasn't saying it to be
Right.
mean, but what I was trying to get her to understand is you keep cutting off your life for these goals. And what I told her was, I think one day if you're not careful, you're going to wake up and you're going to have all the business and the financial success, but the rest of your life is going to be lacking because you're not spending any time in those other areas. You refuse to cultivate relationships. You're not really taking care of your health. You don't have any fun in your life because it's all about business at all times. And somehow we believe that we're going to keep doing that to the extreme and we're going to wake up one day and everything is going to be blissful. And then we'll put all those other things together. In a perfect world, right? That would work out.
Absolutely.
But what if the world isn't perfect? You would have wasted so much of your life only focusing on one area. So I always say, just ask yourself, is it serving me well overall? Overall, in all of those major areas of your life, that in order to truly be happy and quote unquote wealthy, you need all of these areas to thrive. Whatever philosophy that you're subscribing to, proof is in the pudding. Is it serving you well? And if it's not serving you well, then that's what this conversation was about. It's time to consider maybe I should make some adjustments.
Guess what? We can change it however many times we want. You can make
Hmm.
as many adjustments as you just got to be willing to what? Take action. So, yeah, this was good. I really enjoyed this topic because it explored both extremes.
Absolutely. So let's close real quick, as we always do. Tell people what you do real quick, how they can get in contact with you if they need you, and we'll go from there.
You can contact me, of course, via Instagram, more out of life with the underscore. Because somebody had more out of life. I was a little mad about that. But anyway, that's a side note. You can find me in, of course, under Demetra Moore. It's more out of life on there, as well as on Facebook. And you can go to more out of life, MOORE, outoflife.com, and find me there as well. Any questions or topics you all would like for me and RJ to cover, please DM us. We love to hear from you. Any questions you may have, we don't mind addressing them. So DM us, but reach out. At least follow us so we can know you're listening. Okay.
Agreed, agreed. And you can find me at RJ Hodges Speaks on all social media platforms. You can also check out rjhodgesspeaks.com, which will send you to a course. And this course is kind of a precursor to succeeding, in my opinion, because if you're chaotic within, if you're not peaceful within, if you're stressed out, overwhelmed, frustrated, busted, disgusted, all of those things, it's going to be hard to do anything moving forward. So if you feel that way, again, don't just let it go on without taking some sort of steps. You can find that course on there. But other than that, you can find me on all social media platforms, and we look forward to it.
Until next time.
Till